Disclaimer: the video clips used in this video are owned by Warner Brothers / Turner Broadcasting Company. Please support the official release by buying the DVDs or watching streaming services. Thank you. Hi. So today, we're going to be looking at the next Ben 10 movie, which I honestly don't have much nostalgia for because with the first film, Secret of the Omnitrix, it was the first movie. Race Against Time was the first live-action movie, so those two movies had that going for them. Alien Swarm, I mostly remember it as being the only tie-in movie to Alien Force, but when Ultimate Alien came out, it didn't get a movie, nor did Omniverse. And yeah, we did get a new movie, Destroy All Aliens, but it came out at a really weird time because Ultimate Alien was just ending and Omniverse was just about to start, so I don't know. And I wasn't really watching TV too much anymore at this time. I was mostly watching my shows online, so when this movie came out, I just watched it once and then didn't really think about it. But then when the lockdown started, I needed something to keep me occupied, so one of the things I did was just binge buy the rest of the Ben 10 DVDs I didn't have already online, and this was one of them. And from what I remember, I do remember really liking this movie, but whenever Ben 10 is discussed in any capacity, this movie is just kind of left out. So let's watch it again and see if it's worth forgetting or if it's just a hidden gem that not many people gave enough credit to. The movie begins where you see just a random tank destroying stuff. Who's driving it? What's its purpose? We never know. Then we end up seeing the Rust Bucket in Pursuit, where we actually see the main characters from the show in 3D for the first time, not counting video games, and I'm not going to say they look horrible, but they're not great either. I'd say they're passable at best. Anyways, they ram into it, where it then starts attacking them, leading to them hiding under a bridge. And it's here where we see that Grandpa Max is actually packing heat and actually tries to fight it off with a ray gun. Then we see Ben transform for the first time in this movie, and the alien he turns into is Upgrade, which leads to him and Gwen fighting about how to handle the situation. And I don't know why, but in this movie, Upgrade moves more goopy than what I'm used to in the show. It's kind of weird. Then after Ben takes control over the tank, Gwen casts a dismantling spell, taking it apart, leading to all of the fallen debris to almost kill Grandpa. Okay, so yes, Gwen does have magic powers, and the reason I never brought it up was because in the first movie, it wasn't that relevant. Race Against Time, she just didn't have them. And Alien Swarm, she did use them, but not too much, so I can see if you missed that. Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up for people who was wondering if I was aware, or if you clicked on this video not watching Ben 10 and you just had nothing else going on today. After the spell, Upgrade feels a jolt of electricity leading to the watch timing out, where we get more of Ben and Gwen arguing like they normally do. Then as they decide to go home, we see the watch acting weird leading into the opening title sequence. Afterward, we then see Ben inside of an abandoned city, flying around on his hoverboard, which he did get at the end of Secret of the Omnitrix. And then we see Ben getting attacked by all of his aliens, ending with him getting taken by Waybig, who doesn't look right. I will elaborate on this later. Anyways, he then asks Ben for his homework, showing that this entire sequence was just a dream. Okay, so I think the purpose of this dream sequence was to show off the aliens in the movie, but I don't know. I'm a little disappointed we don't get a roster of 10 aliens. We only get 8, and one of them's not even in here. I don't know, that's just how I feel about this part. Anyways, his teacher asks him for his homework, and when he tries to give it to him, the watch bugs out and makes it disappear. And things only get worse when he gets shoved into a locker, leading to him to transform into Heat Blast and fly home. However, he doesn't wait for the watch to time out before going inside, which leads to him getting grounded for leaving scorch marks all over the floor. And Ben is of course bummed out by this because he was hoping to go fishing with Grandpa Max tomorrow. Then we see Ben calling Grandpa Max, asking if he can talk to his dad about him getting grounded, as well as talking about how he wishes summer didn't end and how they can keep going on adventures. Hey, wait a minute, didn't we already get something like this in Race Against Time? Then we see Ben trying to do his homework, obviously bored. But then the Omnitrix seems to vaporize his laptop with Ben wondering what's wrong with it. Then he calls Gwen asking if she can do his homework. She of course says no, saying that the solution to all of Ben's problems won't just fly through his window. But then lo and behold, Tetrax shows up flying just outside Ben's window. Yeah, the reason he's there is because he got a message from Asmus saying that he needed to see Ben, but he never specified as to why. But Ben doesn't care because to him, this is just another cool adventure. However, when they make it to Tetrax's ship, he brings up that Asmus is actually coming to Earth and they're not going to him. But for some reason, Asmus is running late, and as he says this, Ben's Omnitrix starts acting weird, which of course leads to Ben playing dumb about it. So, as a way to avoid further questioning, he runs off to go look for Asmus, assuming he landed somewhere else. And as he does, the watch flashes, and this causes a truck to crash, so as a way to make sure the driver is safe, he goes to look for him, and when he does, he finds a random Toku star running around smashing stuff. Okay, so for those of you who haven't watched the show, or it's been a really long time, yeah, all of Ben's aliens have proper species names. So if I know what they are, I will refer to them as such. If not, I will use the hero name that Ben gave. For example, the alien Heat Blast is known as a Pyronite. Just wanted to clarify. He almost gets crushed by it until Tetrax comes in to save him. Then Ben tries to turn into Waybig, but instead turns into Stinkfly through a pretty faithful recreation of his transformation from the show. And after he transforms, Tetrax tells him that Tokustar's weakness is actually the top of his head. But when he tries to take advantage of this, the watch times out, but also flashes again and making the Tokustar disappear, with Tetrax congratulating Ben for supposedly destroying it. And then we cut to Grandpa Max getting a call from Ben's parents where they tell him that he's not home, so him and Gwen go to look for him. We then cut back to Tetrax and Ben, where they think that the Tokustar might have had something to do with Asmus not being there. So they decide to go look for him in space. And it's here where we see that Gluto isn't in this movie. Which is weird because in the first movie we looked at, he was the one who piloted Tetrax's ship. Tetrax then goes on to do something to the Omnitrix. He said he'll explain what it is once they get out of orbit. However, the ship gets attacked and Ben goes flying through a hole, but thankfully he is able to turn to Diamond Head right before landing and thankfully not die. We then cut back to Grandpa Max and Gwen still trying to find Ben, and they end up coming across the truck that Ben made crash. However, they quickly find out that's actually Asmus' ship with a cloak on it, which leads to Tetrax meeting up with them. Okay, a little fun fact. The ship that Asmus was using in this movie is actually the same ship he rigged up at the end of Secret of the Omnitrix out of Vilgax's robots. Not gonna lie, that's actually a little nice attention to detail. Then we cut back to Ben looking forward to the watch timing out just so he can hitch a ride back home. However, instead of turning human, he ends up turning into forearms, which confuses him because usually when that happens, he goes back to being human. After some walking, he comes across Stonehenge where he runs into a random galvanic mechamorph, I'll just call him the mechamorph for the rest of the video, and he starts attacking him, and after almost destroying Stonehenge, Ben tells him that it's an ancient Earth artifact, but he fills him in saying that it wasn't made by humans, it was actually made by Galvans, which is weird that Ben would care about this, seeing as how he destroyed Mount Rushmore at the end of Season 4. And then we see him morph into a really cool suit of armor where he tells him that he was actually tracking Ben. And I'm just going to say it, the movie goes all out with his fights. Like, right here, there's a really cool part where Forearms grabs his missiles to fly in close and attack him. And it looks really cool. Then he also starts using the rocks from Stonehenge to beat him down. Then we see Ben think he's about to turn back into a human, but instead he turns into Upgrade, with the Mechamorphs wondering where Forearms went, not realizing they're the same guy. Then he goes on the offensive with Ben trying to take over his suit, but instead they end up accidentally teleporting to where Ben thinks is his home planet, but instead they go to Italy, proving how little Ben pays attention in school. He then goes on to stun Ben, where he starts being rather vague about why he's trying to kill him and that he's also looking for Asmus as well. He tries teleporting again, however this time they end up in Egypt where Ben turns into Stinkfly, and as he tries to fly away, the Mechamorph catches up to him where they end up accidentally teleporting back to Bellwood. Then we cut back to the others where Tetrix reveals what he actually did to the Omnitrix before they almost left Earth. Apparently he put on a setting to keep Ben from turning human, and that's why he's been switching between all of his aliens during his fight with the Mechamorph instead of turning back into a human. Okay, this does make sense. Like, they were about to go into space, so being able to transform or at least stay as an alien that will blend in with the rest does make sense. Then again, with the randomizer on, people quickly catch on that something's up. However, they still don't know where Ben is, but Gwen does get the idea to check Asmus' ship, seeing as how he did make the watch and he might have something to track him. But then we cut back to Ben and the Mechamorph, where we see Ben turn into Heat Blast, which at first is okay, but then the Mechamorph freezes him from the neck down, which doesn't make any sense. He's made of fire. Shouldn't the ice be melting rapidly already? He then starts interrogating Ben about the Tokustar he fought at the beginning of the movie, or at least earlier on, but when Ben tells him the truth, they just kind of disappeared. He doesn't really buy it. But thankfully for Ben, the watch this time turns him into gray matter where he's able to make his escape from him. Back on Asmus' ship, they discover that he was actually tracking a malfunction in the Omnitrix. And through some more digging, they come across a video log that shows him crashing his ship with the Tokustar they fought earlier, just kind of showing up out of nowhere. But then the Mechamorph shows up claiming that Asmus is dead, and he thinks the Tokustar that did it was Ben, which does explain why he's been trying to kill him all this time. They then go on to restrain him, trying to get more info out of him. He doesn't talk, and he ends up making the ship explode, but thankfully they are able to just barely survive. Then we cut back to Ben, who is still gray matter, I might add, who just happened to make it home already. Okay, so given how the changes have been happening sporadically, I'm pretty sure by the time he made it home, he should have been something else. Like, gray matter is like, I don't know, this big, and given his tiny legs, and given who knows how far Ben's house was, I think he should have been something else at that point. And as you would guess, his parents freak out about there being an alien inside the house, but then Ben turns back into Diamond Head, causing his mom to faint. And then Grandpa Max shows up, knocking out his dad, along with Tetrax, who is thankfully able to turn off the randomizer on the Omnitrix. But then the Mechamorph comes back again, trying to kill Ben. However, this time when the watch times out, he goes back to being a human. But the watch starts bugging out again, with Max asking what's wrong, and Gwen points out she might actually know what's wrong with it. But then a massive flash from the watch happens, causing everyone to disappear except for Max and Ben's parents. Then we cut to Tetrax and Gwen inside of an abandoned city, and thankfully through a display, they are able to figure out they are inside the Omnitrix right now. And so is Ben and the Mechamorph, where they almost immediately get swarmed by... Okay, I know these things are stinkfly species, but I can't really pronounce it, so I'll just let the Mechamorph say it. Lepidopterans. And as well, we see Gwen and Tetrax get chased down by Vulpamancers, who don't exactly look all that great. And we do get a really funny line from Tetrax after Gwen kind of like makes fun of him for not knowing how to navigate Earth.
Is this what you're like with Ben? I can see why he complains about you.
And then we cut back to the Mechamorph and Ben, where he starts interrogating him on whether or not he was the Tokustar that killed Asmus. But before he can get an answer, Gwen and Tetrax show up, and it's here where Gwen gets them up to speed on the fact that they're inside the Omnitrix, and Ben compares this to an episode back in Season 3 where they were trapped inside one of his video games. As well as Gwen pointing out they're probably scanned into the Omnitrix, kind of like how it scans DNA. But then the Mechamorph tries to get away, and thankfully Gwen is able to stop him, and it's here where we finally figure out why he's been trying to kill Ben and the Tokustar that tried to kill Asmus, or supposedly did already.
Asmus is my son.
So yeah, the main reason he did all this was because his son was gone for so long and was happy to have him back after so many years. But then he had to leave for business, and when he tried to follow him, he couldn't really find him, and when he tried to follow his ship, all he found was the transmission of the Toku Star supposedly killing him. And when he tried to find the Toku Star, it led him to Ben, which is why he did everything he did. But then Ben starts bragging about how he defeated the Toku Star, and of course Gwen forced him to tell the truth, where he points out that it kinda just disappeared after the watch just flashed. And given recent events, Gwen pieces together that he wasn't really defeated, but more like downloaded into the watch like they were, as well as Ben's laptop and homework from also earlier in the movie. And right on cue, the Toku Star shows up out of the ground, proving to the Mechamorph that what they're saying was true. And with this, he goes to have his revenge, despite everyone saying that's too dangerous. But he still wants his revenge anyway, so he forces them away, causing them to fall into a ravine. And when they're down here, Gwen kind of admits that all of this is probably her fault. So, yeah, remember the tank Ben attached himself to as upgrade at the beginning of the movie? Well, when Gwen casted the dismantling smell, it might have messed up the Omnitrix's inner workings, and that's the main reason it's been acting weird the whole movie. So, after some reconciling and Gwen using her magic to escape, she realized that maybe with upgrade and a different spell, they could escape. However, since they're inside the Omnitrix, Ben can't exactly use it. But thankfully the Mechamorph is the same species as upgrade, so they'll just use him. And we do see her pull it off, but before we see if it works, we cut to Grandpa Max in the rust bucket trying to fix the Omnitrix himself. But he runs away when he starts seeing it glow, causing an explosion, and the first thing we see escape is actually the Toku Star. But don't worry, everyone else made it alive, and Ben even has the Omnitrix back on. And with the truth now known, the Mechamorph goes after the Toku Star, and when Ben goes to follow him, the watch starts glowing again, and this time it transforms his parents into a Pyro Knight and Vulpamancer, which immediately start attacking them. Alright, I'm just gonna say it. This is the best 3D depiction of Wildmutt, because with Race Against Time, he looked terrible, but it was a live-action movie. There was clearly liberties being taken. But earlier, we see a pack of them, and they look terrible, so why is this alien so hard to do in 3D? And with that, Tetrax brings up the reason they're probably attacking them is because they turn into aliens through unnatural means. And with this, Gwen kind of figures out something. Since the Omnitrix download them into the watch, what if it uploads DNA like it did with Ben's parents? And she gets the idea that maybe the Toku Star didn't kill Asmus, but might actually be Asmus. Which makes Ben think back to where he almost got hit by a truck, which was Asmus' ship, and the watch did glow when he almost hit him, and right around that time is when the Toku Star showed up, giving more confirmation that it might be him. So with this new knowledge, Tetrax and Grandpa Max stay behind to keep Ben's parents from killing each other, while Gwen and Ben try to fight the Toku Star and keep the Mechamorph from killing his son. And the first thing Ben does before doing this is transform into Waybig, and yeah, I think now's a good time to talk about Waybig's design for this movie. Okay, so remember when I said Waybig didn't look right? Well, here's a picture of him from the original show, and now here's a picture of him from Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, and you can see they do look different. I bring this up because this is the part of the movie where I feel like they really just cut corners, because the 3D models used for Waybig and the Toku Star were actually reused from the video game Ben 10 Ultimate Alien Cosmic Destruction. And in that game, the final boss is literally Ben as Waybig fighting an evil Toku Star. Yeah, I just thought it'd be best to point that out for people who haven't played the game and weren't aware of this, or for people who have known about this and was curious to know if I knew. And it's here where we get to see the two giants fight, and despite the mindless destruction and God knows how many people getting killed and all this, this is just a fun fight to watch. And it even gets better when Ben remembers the weakness that Tetrax brought up, and he takes advantage of this by suplexing him into a building, and this actually takes him out for a bit. But then the Mechamorph wakes up and sees the other one not knowing it's Ben, so he title drops the movie.
I will destroy all aliens!
And also ends up shooting Ben down a few blocks, where they do try to tell him that the other one is Asmus, but he doesn't believe them and still tries to kill him. So now Ben has to keep him from killing his son and keep Asmus from destroying everything. And things only get worse when Ben gets knocked down and accidentally says how to take down a Tokuster, which the Mechamorph almost does, but Ben takes the hit, and around the same time, the Omnitrix times out. So as a last-ditch effort, Gwen tries to use her magic to set him free, mentally at least, and it does seem to work. He actually mutters some words, which proves to the Mechamorph he is Asmus, leading to him to grab the both of them and somehow use the Mechamorph to fix the Omnitrix and turn himself back to normal. Okay, how the hell did he do that? Like, how did he just pick both of them up and then fix the Omnitrix? Because they established that he wasn't mentally all there. I don't know, to me, this is the equivalent of, in a fantasy movie, you could just say, oh, it's magic. But for here, this is probably the equivalent of saying, oh, it's alien technology beyond human understanding, as a way to just bullshit your way out of an explanation. And then Asmus points out another thing that was wrong with the watch was that it was so full of mana. A nice little wink to the audience who watched Alien Force that already knew that Gwen was an Anodite. And another thing we learn is that the Mechamorph was actually wearing a battle suit and that he does look like a Galvan, or he is a Galvan. And the reason he was so not really willing to cooperate was because the mech suit actually heightens aggression. And right as Asmus and his father reconcile and are about to leave Earth, Ben asks them to turn his parents back into humans since that's kind of the only thing they haven't really resolved yet. Then we cut back to Tetrax and Grandpa Max trying to keep Ben's parents from killing each other, but thankfully the others make it back just in time to turn them back into humans, where we discover that them turning into aliens and then back kind of scrambled their memory, so they don't remember the last few hours, leading to Ben getting ungrounded. And as a thank you for pretty much everything, Asmus uses the Mechamorph armor to repair the rust bucket, but how exactly he repaired all the bumper stickers and already rusted up bits, I will not know. And then Grandpa Max offers Ben a weekend road trip, but he declines, saying that he learned his lesson in all this, until Gwen points out he's just going to forget it anyway, so he changes his mind. Then it cuts to them on the road where they just run into Dr. Animo, so the movie just abruptly comes to an end with them about to fight him. And that was Ben 10 Destroy All Aliens, and I gotta say, I really like this movie. I mean, with the last two, they ranged from okay to mid, but mostly forgettable. And compared to Secret of the Omnitrix, this movie comes close. Like, they're both surprisingly good Ben 10 movies. Also, this movie kind of takes a lot of plot threads from the first two movies, like the Omnitrix being busted in one way or another, and which does eventually lead to Tetrax and Asmus getting involved into the story, as well as having Ben trying to readjust to life again outside of Summer. And it's weird they bring Tetrax back. Like, don't get me wrong, he is a cool character, but he was only in one episode of the original show. Okay, granted, by the time this movie came out, he did make another appearance in Alien Force. As well, this movie also feels like a fun story for the original fans of the first show. Like, yeah, I know, like, there might not have been some people who liked Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, so it was nice of them to give something for the original show lovers. But, like I said before, it came out at a weird time. Like, Ultimate Alien was just ending, and Omniverse was just about to come out, so this movie just kind of slipped under the radar, and not many people probably gave it a shot. And another thing I would briefly like to talk about is actually the animation, because I don't mind it. I don't think it looks too bad, but yeah, compared to a Pixar or Disney movie, it's nothing too special. At the time, there were a lot of 3D shows that kind of looked like this. Like, there was Beware the Batman, there was the Green Lantern animated series, which I really gotta watch. There was the Ninja Turtles show. I even looked at some of its episodes for Halloween. And there was also the Humans in Transformers Prime. So yeah, for me, I'm just used to this type of animation for this movie. So in conclusion, if you're a fan of the original series, like, not counting its continuations, then I highly recommend giving this movie a shot, because if you never heard about it, I get it. But if you never saw it because of the visuals, I recommend giving it a chance because it's actually pretty damn good. Okay, so a quick little thing before this video ends. When I was working on some of the earlier videos, there was an announcement about a Ben 10 Complete Series box set coming out, but since it wasn't an official source, I kind of just brushed it off in case it was fake. But literally today, or yesterday by the time I'm filming this, there is pre-orders up. There is going to be a Complete Series Ben 10 box set. So, just for fun, when it comes out, or as soon as I get it in the mail, I'm going to do an unboxing video of it. So, I hope you all look forward to that. So, now that we're done all the movies connected to the original run of Ben 10, next time, we're going to be looking at the one movie that the reboot had. Not counting the 3 specials that came out during its final season, like the actual one that was labeled as a movie. That being Ben 10, Ben vs. the Universe. Take care.